Hi, and welcome to this presentation on exploding a moment, a technique that will be used in your narrative essay. First of all, let's define what exploding a moment actually is. So what it is it's taking one of the most important scenes in your paper, or maybe more than one, and putting it into slow motion. Imagining for a second that a filmmaker is going to take your paper and take one moment and just slow it way down. And put it in slow motion so that people can really feel and understand what's going on. There's a lot of ways that you can do this, and it's usually, when it gets to our second bullet here, it's a big moment in your paper. So it's maybe the climax or the moment of most suspense. Maybe it's a point where something could go either way. We're not quite sure how things are going to turn out, but they could go one way or the other. One example that I've given a lot as a high school instructor, I read a lot of papers about football games, and one particular year there was a really exciting game that had happened. It was a playoff game. The game was tied going into the final seconds, and it was up to the punter or the field goal guy to come out and hit a field goal. And if they win, they win. If they hit the field goal, and so easily could have been just said that the kid kicked the ball and it went through the goalpost and they won the game. End of story. But what probably would be more effective would be to really take that moment and explode it, because that's the point of most suspense. The game is hinged on this one action, and so is it going to be successful? Is he going to make it, or is he not going to make it? And so to explode that moment, we don't just want to know that he kicked it and it went through the goalpost. No, but what we want to know is, what was he feeling as he's standing up there and the other team calls timeout to ice him? And, what are the thoughts that are going into his head? Is he confident that he can get this through the goalpost, or is he a little bit nervous and scared? Maybe he isn't worried about what his teammates are going to be thinking or about his coach, because the whole game and the rest of the season is kind of, sitting on his shoulders. And so to really slow that down, we want to know what he's thinking. We want to know what he's hearing. We want to know what he's seeing as he looks around. Is he, getting, high fives from his teammates? Are they, pretty confident that he's going to get it? So we get a whole bunch of different descriptions and thoughts because of this slow motion of this one big moment. Usually when you choose a moment to explode, it's a moment that's just too important to slip by. We don't want it to just, glance over it and move on to the end. Just like the football example, we don't want to just say, oh, he kicked the field goal and it was a success and the team won and they were really happy. There's so much more to it than that. We want to really create that suspense. We want readers to be on the edge of their seat, because in fact, that was the moment that was way too important for anybody to have let slip by. Then the next two bullets talk about the reader, because what it does, and I kind of mentioned it before, it creates suspense. So all of a sudden now the reader is really pulled into the story. We want to know what's going to happen to this kicker. Is he going to be successful, or is he not going to be successful? Will his teammates be mad at him? And what kind of hinges on that success, if he's confident or not, if he's too confident, what is it that's going to happen and transpire? And so we want to know, we want to be put into the character's shoes. And you've probably all read stories that have that happen. It also will pull the reader into the time, into the place, and into the event. So it takes us from being just a spectator to now being part of the action, which is what you really want to do when you're telling a story. How do you use exploding a moment? So it's a technique that really isn't difficult to use. It kind of builds on a lot of the things that we were doing with the descriptive essay last paper, and also some of the things that hopefully you read about in the other two handouts that were listed just before this. So number one, you want to use long descriptive snapshots. So if you were to, let's use that football player example, take a picture at that particular moment in time. What is it that field goal kicker is seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, etc.? We want to know the nitty gritty. We want to know, does he see the laces on the football? We want to know if there's sweat dripping into his eyes. We want to know if, his stomach is tied up in knots, or if it has butterflies, or, whatever. We want to know what it is that he's feeling. And so we're going to use descriptive snapshots. If there's people that are yelling that he's going to miss it because they're the opposing teammates, maybe his own teammates are shouting out words of encouragement. So those are descriptive snapshots. And you will use your five senses when you are talking about those descriptive snapshots. The second way that you can use Explode a Moment is to enter into the character's thoughts. And again, that's giving us specifics. What is it that this character is thinking? In his head, is he thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this, never going to have this go through the uprights. I've never been successful before. I can't deal with all this pressure. Or is he going to be really confident and say, I've got this. I've done this 1,000 times before. This is no different than practice. What is it that he's thinking? And the third way is to use dialogue. And dialogue is always a good way to make things appear more real. And so, dialogue can really give us a snapshot and a thought shot. It can do both, actually. It can tell us what's going on descriptively. It can also, be an insight into what the characters and other characters who are watching can show us what they're thinking as well. And then the fourth option is, obviously, you can always use a combination of the three of these things. You're never, I shouldn't say never, but not a lot of the time will you use just one of those three things. You'll probably use a combination of all. This is an example of one that I wrote just a couple of years ago. It's a very quick little paragraph. I was a cross-country runner. So if any of you have any experience with cross-country, this is about my first race. I was nervous. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I was at the starting line, and so this is kind of sets up where I was. So take a second, read this paragraph, and then we'll talk just a little bit about what's in there. All right, so just a couple of things that I'll point out. Up here you see some snapshots talking about my mouth being dry, my heart is pounding, I attempt to swallow, there's girls crouched in position, hands pointed like arrows. So there's some description in terms of a snapshot. So if I took a snapshot of that particular moment, those are some things that I would see. I also include down here towards the end, these are my thoughts. So I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I'm totally not prepared. What if I can't finish? And then all of a sudden the bang of the gun goes back to a snapshot again and I take off. So while my time at the starting line didn't take very long, I'm probably only there for a minute and I'm being in that crouched position, this has been expanded into an entire paragraph. So what maybe could have been said in a sentence is now said in an entire paragraph, gives the reader a better look into what's going on in my head and in terms of what I'm seeing, so it hopefully pulls them in. If I wanted to go into more detail, I could definitely talk about the things that are listed down below. I could have described my teammates who are kind of huddled around me because the whole team is in the same starting box. So I could have talked about what was going on with them, if they looked confident, if they were patting me on the back, what is it that they were doing? So I could have gone into more detail that way. Could have also included some dialogue. The starter always says certain things. I could have included that if I would have wanted to. And I could have also talked about the weather. Is it windy? Is there a breeze? Is it hot? Going into more detail about that can just give the reader a better picture as to what's going on. So this is one of my examples, and it's not terribly great writing by any means. You will notice that after this, there's another YouTube video, and it's a really good example. It's about a sister who pours a carton of milk over her younger sister's head. And it's just a really good example of slowing down that moment that probably didn't take very long, but she gets very descriptive in terms of what it is that's going on in her head and also what kind of a snapshot, what she's seeing. All right, what you're going to see on this page are a bunch of possible narrative essay topics. It does say at the top to practice with these. I'm not actually going to have you write on any one of these. I want you instead to write about your own paper topic. So these, if you're really still stuck on something and you're not, or stuck on your topic, you don't really have one yet, these might spark an idea. But what I want you to do in your homework, which is on this next slide, is to take a moment in your own paper and to explode it. So include, thought shots and snapshots, and include dialogue if necessary, or a combination of all three of those things. I think the assignment in the Assignments tab will tell you actually to take your moment and type either a half to a full page just on that one moment or that one scene. And so really take some time and think about what is it that was going through your head at the moment. What is it that you saw, heard, felt, tasted, all of the above at that particular moment. So choose one moment and explode it in your own paper. Now, when I'm asking for a half to a full page, do you have to use that entire half to full page in your paper, or can it be shortened? And the answer is you won't maybe use all of it. This might be kind of a stream of consciousness or a journal. Maybe you'll pre-write using this technique and then eventually put it into your paper. Maybe you'll put a shortened version of it in. Maybe you'll keep the whole thing. It kind of depends on what your thoughts are. But what I want you to do is to take a moment in your paper and explode it. So make it a half to a full page in length, making sure to include both snapshots and thought shots. There are more examples listed in the YouTube video, and there's a description of the assignment in the Assignments tab. So thank you and good luck.